Phil, you and me, let's debate this shit. You and me, let's debate January 6th. I promise I will even be nice. I won't yell at you. I won't vegan gains your ass. I'll just talk. You and me, let's do it. What do you say? Let's see who actually, and you don't get your little research crew with you. It's just you and me talking. Let's find out who actually knows more about what's going on.
It's going to be one of those where I absolutely beg you to, yes, in addition to liking and commenting on the stories, please share this video because it is one of those that YouTube might suppress, which is absolutely disgusting and ridiculous. Because while I'm happy with the show in general, the final thing that we talk about today has to be talked about. People need to see it, people need to know about it, and I'm actively trying to do it in a safe for work, safe for YouTube, even though your policies, in my opinion, are a ridiculous way. Yeah, with that plea out of the way. The last thing that we're gonna talk about today, and don't you dare leave, and if anything, send this part to some lost souls. Today is the first day the Select Committee investigating the insurrection on January 6th met, and so far we've seen incredibly powerful testimonies from 4 police officers who were present that day. And as far as why it's taken over half a year to get to this point, I mean, you have Republicans doing everything in their power to prevent House Democrats from investigating what happened. Our Democrats want a bipartisan committee shot down by Republicans. The Democrats go, okay, we're going to push forward. McCarthy, give us some Republicans. McCarthy then trying to push on several Republicans who have promoted the big lie about the election onto the committee, with Pelosi rejecting Jim Jordan and Jim Banks, who very notably voted to object to the results of the election. Well, McCarthy ended up pulling his picks. 2 Republicans are on the committee, with Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger joining the committee, which is incredibly important because we have seen a number of lawmakers, like a surprising number, have been pulling out all the stops they can to get you to forget that Donald Trump supporters tried to take over the seat of democracy. They've been actively trying to rewrite history and push this false narrative downplaying what happened that day. And that's why it's so important we talk about this, because here we go. Well, we've seen Republican members of Congress describing the insurrection and insurrectionists like this.
There was no insurrection, and to call it an insurrection, in my opinion, is a bold-faced lie. Watching the TV footage of those who entered the Capitol and walked through Statuary Hall showed people in an orderly fashion staying between the stanchions and ropes, taking videos and pictures. You know, if you didn't know the TV footage was a video from January the 6th, you would actually think it was a normal tourist visit.
Which, I mean, that right there is an absolutely insane thing to say, to like not in any way address the countless videos we have inside and outside of the Capitol of this violent mob attacking the Capitol Police. And side note here, this is a plea and a criticism of YouTube. If you would please not suppress my videos when I try and show those videos, because the comparing and contrasting of the bullshit to what actually happened is important. How are you gonna kill a video? Search, discovery, and recommending because the truth is too gruesome and it's being denied. And so that's why the testimony today is so important, to compare and contrast what you just heard there, that bullshit, to testimony from the people on the ground. Today, we got to hear from DC police officer Michael Fanone, who rushed to the scene after violence broke out, describing the situation like this.
There were individuals that were trying to grab a hold of my gun. I remember one of them distinctly lunging at me time and time again, trying to grab my gun. And I heard people in the crowd yelling, "Get his gun, kill him with his own gun." I believe that there were individuals in the crowd whose intentions were to kill me. They tortured me. They beat me. I was struck with a taser device at the base of my skull numerous times. And they continued to do so until I yelled out that I have kids.
We've also seen many Republicans spreading the outright lie that the insurrection was a false flag operation, like Matt Gaetz, who said back in January.
Some pretty compelling evidence from a facial recognition company showing that some of the people who breached the Capitol today were not Trump supporters. They were masquerading as Trump supporters, and in fact, were members of the violent terrorist group Antifa.
Right, Gaetz and others want you not to believe your own eyes and ears. I understand this is like very obvious to anyone that's still tethered to reality. But I mean, it's so incredibly important and powerful when you compare and contrast Gaetz to the now numerous officers describing the attackers as Trump supporters, like DC police officer Daniel Hodges, who recounted his efforts defending the Capitol from what he called a white nationalist insurrection led by individuals he repeatedly called terrorists and Donald Trump's people. Capitol Police Sergeant Aquilino Ganell also echoing that.
I wasn't the lowest worst terrorists fighting alongside these officers. And all of them were telling us Trump sent us. Nobody else, there was nobody else. It was not Antifa. It was not Black Lives Matters. It was not the FBI. It was his supporter that he sent them over to the Capitol that day.
With Harry Dunn, a U.S. Capitol Police officer on the ground, describing the situation like this.
I told them to just leave the Capitol. And in response, they yelled, "No, man, this is our house. President Trump invited us here. We're here to stop the steal. Joe Biden is not the president. Nobody voted for Joe Biden."
With him going on to say that he told them, well, I voted for Biden, doesn't my vote count? Which then prompted
A torrent of racial epithets. One woman in a pink MAGA shirt yelled, "You hear that, guys? This voted for Joe Biden." Then the crowd, perhaps around 20 people, joined in screaming, "Boo, f***ing No one had ever called me a while wearing the uniform of a Capitol Police officer.
With Dunn going on to say that numerous other black officers also told him of similar instances with insurrectionists calling them slurs.
Yet another black officer later told me he had been confronted by insurrectionists in the Capitol who told him, "Put your gun down and we'll show you what kind of you really are."
With Dunn also going on to condemn Trump specifically for inciting the insurrection and calling for accountability.
If a hitman is hired and he kills somebody, the hitman goes to jail. But not only does the hitman go to jail, but the person who hired them does. There was an attack carried out on January 6th, and a hitman sent them. I want you to get to the bottom of that.
And that's something that the other officers emphasize as well, while also slamming the Republicans who they literally risked their lives to protect for downplaying the insurrection.
I feel like I went to hell and back to protect them and the people in this room. But too many are now telling me that hell doesn't exist or that hell actually wasn't that bad. The indifference shown to my colleagues is disgraceful.
Right, with this whole situation, you have to ask yourself, why did Republicans not want you to hear this and see this and for there to be a deeper dive? But rather than telling you the truth of why they don't want you to see it because it makes them look horrible, they're gonna try and deflect and say, well, what about Ashley Babbitt? She was shot and killed after she served this country and then was part of a violent mob that stormed the Capitol. And I genuinely don't know why this isn't talked about more. There's a fucking video of this violent mob smashing through doors. At one point, you can actually see how close they get to the lawmakers that they're actively trying to get to. And Ashley Babbitt ends up getting shot because she's going through a broken window through what is essentially one of the last barricades. I can't show the video here on YouTube because she's actually shot in the video. I'll link to it down below. Like, it's clear as day. Like, what a stupid fucking deflection. And understand, I'm not someone who's been rejoicing about Ashley Babbitt being killed. I see her as a victim, not though of Capitol Police, but rather the victim of a constant stream of misinformation and people that push QAnon, whether they believe in it or they're just profiteering from it, as well as politicians that are scared to denounce this pure insanity because it means they're gonna get kicked out in the primaries. Once again, I'm sharing all of this and talking about this because one, very unfortunately, especially with a large number of the Republican base, the downplaying of January 6th has been very effective. And as always, I'm not trying to take away from you enjoying a little bit of calm right now, enjoying your fat daddy summer, your hot girl summer, your whatever.
He still thinks he's 15.
Summer. But insanity is awaiting you just around the corner in 2022 and 2024. And the fact
Insanity is awaiting you in 2022 and 2024. Is Phil coming out and taking a position in the 2022 and 2024 elections? Are you backing aside, Phil? I thought you were just here to give people the facts so that there's no misinformation. All right, Phil, go fuck yourself. You're a moron, and you shouldn't be talking about these issues for several reasons. One, because you're a moron, and two, because you have no fucking idea what you're talking about. You come at it from a purely partisan way, and you don't care.